Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to share something a little different, something that's been on my mind for a while now. My son asked me a simple question last month, and my answer made him cry. My name is William Barrett. I'm 82 years old, and I told my son the one thing I'd change about my life if I could go back. I didn't expect it would break his heart. We were sitting on my back porch on a Sunday afternoon in October. My son Daniel is 54 now, a good man with a family of his own, 2 teenage daughters who are smart and kind and everything you'd hope for in grandchildren. He'd driven up from the city to visit me like he does most Sundays, and we were just talking, the way fathers and sons do when they've run out of news to share and settle into comfortable silence. Out of nowhere, Daniel asked me, "Dad, if you could change one thing about your life, what would it be?" It wasn't a heavy question the way he asked it. He was just curious, making conversation. But something about the question caught me off guard, and before I could think better of it, I told him the truth. I said, "I'd spend more time with you when you were young." The moment the words left my mouth, I saw his face change. He looked at me with this expression I'd never seen before. Something between hurt and confusion and sadness. He didn't say anything for a long moment. He just looked down at his hands, and I realized what I'd done. I'd told my adult son, this man who turned out well despite everything, that my biggest regret was not being there for him. And he'd heard it as confirmation of something he'd probably always suspected, but never wanted to believe. Let me tell you about the life I lived, so you understand why I said what I said and why it matters. I grew up poor in West Virginia, in a coal mining town where most men either worked in the mines or left to find work somewhere else. My father worked in the mines for 32 years and died of black lung at 56. I watched what that life did to him, how it broke his body down year by year, and I swore I'd do whatever it took to have a different life. I was going to make something of myself. I was going to give my family everything I never had. I got a scholarship to study engineering at the State University, the first person in my family to go to college. I worked 2 jobs while I was in school, sent money home when I could, and graduated near the top of my class. I got hired by a manufacturing company right out of school, married my college sweetheart Patricia 6 months later, and felt like I was on my way to the life I'd promised myself. Daniel was born when I was 28. Patricia and I were living in a small apartment in Pittsburgh, scraping by on my entry-level engineer's salary, trying to save money for a house. When Daniel was born, I held him in the hospital and made him a silent promise. I promised him he'd never know the kind of poverty I grew up with. He'd never worry about money or go without things he needed. He'd have opportunities I never had. I'd work as hard as it took to give him that life, and I kept that promise. I worked incredibly hard. I took every overtime shift, every extra project, every opportunity to prove myself and move up. I was at the office early and came home late. I worked weekends when they needed me. I traveled for business, sometimes for weeks at a time. I was building my career, building our financial security, building the foundation for the comfortable life I wanted to give my family. By the time Daniel was 10, we'd bought a house in a good neighborhood. Patricia didn't have to work if she didn't want to. We had 2 cars, took vacations every summer, never worried about bills. Daniel went to good schools, had nice clothes, played sports, took music lessons. On paper, I'd given him everything I'd promised, everything I never had. But here's what I didn't give him. I didn't give him my time. I didn't give him my presence. I was so focused on providing financially that I missed almost everything else. I missed most of his Little League games because I was working. I missed school plays and parent-teacher conferences and weekend camping trips because I had projects due or business trips scheduled. I was there for the big moments, the birthdays and holidays and graduations, but I missed the thousands of small moments in between. Patricia handled everything at home. She was the one who helped with homework, who drove him to practice, who listened to his problems, who tucked him in at night. She was the one who actually raised him while I was busy providing for him. And I told myself that was how it was supposed to be. I was doing my part by working hard and making money. That was how I showed love. That was what being a good father meant. Daniel and I had a cordial relationship when he was growing up. We weren't close exactly, but we weren't distant either. We just didn't know each other very well. I was his father, the authority figure, the person who set rules and expected good grades and asked about his plans for the future. But I wasn't someone he talked to about his real thoughts or feelings. I wasn't someone he came to for advice or comfort. That was Patricia's role. When Daniel went to college, I was proud. He got into a good school, studied business, did well. When he graduated and got a job, I felt like my mission was accomplished. I'd given him the opportunities I'd promised. He had a degree, a career path, a future that looked nothing like the poverty I'd escaped. I'd succeeded as a father. Patricia died 8 years ago. Pancreatic cancer, fast and brutal. She was here, and then she wasn't. And suddenly, I was alone in a way I'd never been before. Daniel was there for the funeral, of course, and he called regularly afterward to check on me. But I could feel the distance between us. We'd never built the kind of relationship where we really talked, where we shared our inner lives. We'd built a relationship based on duty and respect, and that doesn't translate well into the kind of connection you need when you're grieving. After Patricia died, I had a lot of time to think. I was retired by then, living alone in the house that had once been full of life, and I started to see my life differently. I started to see all the things I'd missed while I was so busy working. I missed teaching Daniel to ride a bike because I was traveling for work. Patricia did it. I missed the father-son campout in Cub Scouts because I had a deadline. I missed the school science fair where he won first place because I was in a meeting I couldn't reschedule. I missed his high school graduation party because I was exhausted from work and went to bed early. I missed so many dinners, so many conversations, so many chances to just be with him. And the worst part was, I'd told myself it was worth it. I'd told myself I was sacrificing my time for his benefit, that working hard was how I showed love. But looking back now, I can see that I was wrong. Daniel didn't need a bigger house or nicer vacations or expensive music lessons. What he needed was a father who was present, who knew him, who spent time with him, not because it was scheduled or required, but just because we enjoyed each other's company. I tried to build a relationship with him after Patricia died. I really did. We had our Sunday visits, we talked on the phone, we spent holidays together. But there was this distance between us that I didn't know how to bridge. We'd missed the years when you build that foundation, when you create the memories and the inside jokes and the shared experiences that bind people together. We were trying to build a relationship as adults that should have been built when he was a child. So when Daniel asked me that question on the porch, what I'd change if I could, the answer was obvious. I'd change the way I spent my time. I'd work less and be home more. I'd coach his little league team instead of missing the games. I'd help with homework instead of being too tired. I'd have dinner with my family every night instead of working late. I'd choose presence over provision, connection over career advancement, time together over money in the bank. After I said it, Daniel was quiet for a long time. Then he asked me, "Did you not want to spend time with me? Did you not like being around me?" That question hurt more than anything, because that's what he'd taken from my answer, that I'd chosen not to be with him, that work was more important than he was. And I had to explain to my 54-year-old son that it wasn't about not wanting to be with him. It was about being so focused on what I thought a good father should do that I missed what he actually needed from me. I told him the truth. I told him that I loved him more than anything, that every hour I worked was motivated by wanting to give him a better life than I had. But I also told him that I was wrong about what that meant. I thought providing financially was the most important thing, but it wasn't. Being present was the most important thing. Knowing him was the most important thing. And I'd failed at that. Daniel started crying. My adult son, sitting on my porch, crying because his 82-year-old father finally admitted that he'd prioritized the wrong things. He said he'd always felt like he wasn't important enough to me, like his achievements never quite measured up, like I was disappointed in him somehow, even though he could never figure out why. And I realized that my absence had left a wound in him that had never healed. All those years of working hard to give him a good life, I'd actually made him feel unloved. We talked for hours that day. Really talked in a way we never had before. I told him about my childhood, about the poverty and the fear and the desperation that drove me to work so hard. He told me about his childhood, about feeling lonely and confused by my absence, about trying to be perfect so I'd notice him, about giving up eventually and just accepting that we weren't going to be close. I apologized. I told him I was sorry for all the things I'd missed, all the ways I'd failed to be the father he needed. I told him that I'd been so focused on escaping my past that I'd failed to be present for his childhood. I told him that if I could go back and do it all over, I'd make different choices. I'd work less. I'd be home more. I'd know him better. Daniel accepted my apology. He told me he understood why I'd made the choices I made, that he knew I was trying to be a good father in the only way I knew how. But he also told me that understanding doesn't erase the hurt, that knowing my reasons doesn't change the fact that he grew up feeling like I didn't have time for him. That conversation changed something between us. Not immediately, not magically, but over time. We started talking more honestly. I started asking him real questions about his life, his feelings, his struggles. He started opening up to me in ways he never had before. We're building something now that we should have built 40 years ago, and while I'm grateful for it, I can't help but grieve for all the time we lost. I'm 82 years old. I had a successful career. I provided well for my family. I gave my son financial security and opportunities and a comfortable life. But I failed to give him the thing that mattered most, which was my time and my attention and my genuine presence in his daily life. And now, at the end of my life, that's the thing I regret most. If you're a parent, especially if you're a father, please listen to me. Your children don't need you to work yourself to death to give them things. They need you to be there. They need you to know them. They need you to show up, not just for the big moments, but for the ordinary ones, the boring ones, the everyday moments that actually make up a childhood. I know you're tired. I know you're stressed about money. I know you think you're doing the right thing by working hard and providing. But I'm telling you from experience, from the perspective of someone who did exactly that and now has to live with the regret, it's not worth it. The extra money, the bigger house, the nicer vacations, none of it matters as much as being present for your kids. Your children will remember whether you were there. They'll remember if you came to their games, if you helped with their homework, if you had dinner with them, if you listened when they talked. They won't remember how big the house was or how expensive their clothes were. They'll remember whether you made them feel important, whether you made time for them, whether you chose them over your work. I told my son the truth when he asked what I'd change, and it broke his heart because it confirmed something he'd always felt, that I'd chosen work over him, that I'd prioritized other things above being his father. And while we're working to repair our relationship now, I can't give him back his childhood. I can't go back and be there for the moments I missed. I can't undo the hurt that my absence caused. Don't make my mistake. Don't wait until you're 82 to realize that you prioritized the wrong things. Don't wait until your children are adults with wounds you can't heal to understand that presence matters more than provision. Be there now. Choose them now. Make time now. Because you can't get these years back, and you'll regret it for the rest of your life if you don't. My answer broke my son's heart, but it also opened a door between us that had been closed for 50 years. We're walking through it together now, trying to build something real. I'm grateful for that. But I wish I'd walked through that door when he was 7 or 12 or 17, when it would have shaped his whole life instead of just the end of mine. Don't wait. Be the father your children need, not the father you think you're supposed to be. Be there, be present, be available. That's what they'll remember. That's what matters. And that's what I wish I'd understood when it still could have made a difference.